Hi everyone, it's Helen Horta here, founder of FormHelp, and we are on the australia.gov.au/states website. Now I've done some guides on how to complete the Australia DPD or Digital Passenger Declaration, and I'm finding that lots of people are asking whether I know what the entry requirements are for each of the different states and territories. So I decided I needed to address the entry requirements for each of the states and territories. Now, before I begin, I have a couple of requests. Now, I have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2022. So if you can help out, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you find this video helpful, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Thanks, everyone. Okay, now let's get into seeing what the entry requirements are for Western Australia. Okay, we are on the Western Australia government page. Now, as you can see here, it's wa.gov.au, and this is the information for international travellers. Okay, so as you can see here, it says information about entering WA from overseas. And then we have a content section here, and this is what it covers. So information for international travellers entering WA, indirect international arrivals while you are here, leaving WA, and then more info and publications. Okay, so public health and social measures are in place across WA, and then find out what you can and can't do. So you've got a link there. So the Australian government is responsible for Australia's international border, and you are required to meet any Commonwealth requirements to enter Australia. So part of that requirement is the DPD. So anybody who wants to enter Australia, they need to have a DPD. So all people arriving into WA, including returning WA residents, must complete a G2G Pass, and you've got a link there, prior to arrival. So that's very important. Ensure that you do complete a G2G Pass, as it says there, prior to your arrival into WA. Now there's FAQs here about travelling to WA, and then you also have a visual guide there. Information for international travellers. Now, international travellers entering WA are required to meet Commonwealth Government requirements to enter Australia, including vaccination and testing requirements. You need to be fully vaccinated under the Commonwealth Government's requirements if eligible. You need to hold a current G2G Pass. And I have done a tutorial on the G2G Pass, so I will put links in the description box below. You're required to undertake a RAT within 12 hours of arriving into WA and register any positive result. So if you have a negative or a neutral result, they're not interested in you registering that result. All they want is a positive result. Now, unvaccinated returning Australians will be required to complete 7 days of hotel quarantine. Face coverings must be worn on aircraft and at airports in WA unless the traveller is aged under 12 years or holds a valid medical exemption. Now, see the Department of Health websites for information about COVID-19 testing requirements and evidence you need to provide, what to do if your test result is positive, when you have had and recovered from COVID-19, exemptions from standard pre-departure testing requirements, including countries and jurisdictions exempt from pre-departure testing. Now, you are responsible for checking, testing and proof of vaccination requirements for the airline you are travelling with and any countries you transit through. Entering WA. Now, you will be provided with a RAT upon arrival and must undertake the test upon arrival within 12 hours and register any positive results. So that's great news. You don't have to travel with your own RAT. They will provide you one upon arrival. Indirect international arrivals. Now, international arrivals who transit throughout other states or territories in Australia will be subject to the interstate arrival requirements and must hold a current G2G Pass, be triple dose vaccinated against COVID-19 if eligible, or double dose vaccinated if not eligible for a third dose, undertake a RAT within 12 hours of arriving into WA if entering by air, or 24 hours if not entering by air. And again, please remember to register any positive result. While you are here, so while you're in WA, make sure you wear a face covering everywhere indoors other than at home, including when on public transport, in taxis and rideshare vehicles. Ensure you are aware of any public health measures in WA and find out what you can and can't do, so you can click on that link there. You need to ensure you get tested if you develop any COVID-19 symptoms. Ensure that you are familiar with information and advice for managing COVID-19, including any testing and isolation guidance. Ensure you regularly check the list of exposure sites and follow the relevant health advice. Ensure you use the Service WA app or the Safe WA app or mandatory contact registers to check into certain businesses and venues. Ensure you have your proof of vaccination ready to enter certain businesses and venues, and ensure you check the Remote Aboriginal Communities page. Again, you've got a link there before travelling through remote areas in WA. Now, what happens if you test positive to COVID-19 in WA? So see the testing and isolation guidelines for information about what to do if you do test positive or are a close contact. Leaving WA. Now, if you choose to leave WA to travel interstate or internationally, you should be aware of any restrictions or public health and social measures of the jurisdiction or country you are travelling to. Now, for more information about leaving Australia, you can visit the Australian Government's travel restriction approvals for travellers to and from Australia. Now, the Smart Traveller also provides advice on travelling during the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's also important to make sure you plan ahead and have a registered G2G Pass and proof of vaccination prior to travelling back into WA. And for more information, if you have any questions about travelling to WA and you're calling from overseas, then you have this international COVID hotline here. So it's +61 8 9118 3100, and then you have a international travel and COVID-19 link right there. And if you look to your right over here, there is more information and more contact numbers, easy to find, so that's great. And if you scroll down below, there is more information there for you to read. So as you can see here, this page was reviewed on the 25th of March 2022, so all the information there is still current. So let's have a look. I wanted to look at the FAQs for travelling to WA, so let's have a look. So as you can see here, there's some interstate travel FAQs. If you need to have a look at those, you can, but I'm going to go straight to the international FAQs. Okay, so international travel. So what are the requirements to enter WA from overseas? So all this information is basically what we just covered. Okay, so I'll go to the next question. What are the Commonwealth Government's requirements to enter Australia? So information about the Commonwealth Government's requirements to enter Australia from overseas is available on the Department of Home Affairs website. Okay, so if you click on there, it will take you to the Home Affairs page. Okay, next question. I am fully vaccinated and will be entering WA from overseas. Do I need to quarantine? The answer is no. Quarantine is not required for travellers who meet the vaccination requirements for entry to WA unless you return a positive COVID-19 test or are a close contact. Can unvaccinated people enter WA from overseas? So under the Commonwealth's border controls, unvaccinated Australians may be able to enter WA directly from overseas, subject to the Commonwealth's requirements. So this is subject to a cap of 70 unvaccinated travellers per week. So unvaccinated returning Australians will be required to complete hotel quarantine for a minimum 7 days at their own expense. So you can learn more about paying for hotel quarantine by clicking on that link there. Is there a time frame in which travellers will need to have had their last vaccination? So travellers must be up to date with their COVID-19 vaccinations, and depending on which vaccine they have received and how many doses are recommended. Will international arrivals who transit or spend time in another Australian state or territory before WA need to be triple dose vaccinated. Now, international arrivals must be vaccinated under the Commonwealth Government's requirements if eligible to enter WA, and this will vary depending on the brand of the vaccine and the recommended doses. So if you're travelling to WA from another state or territory in Australia, travellers must meet the vaccination requirements for interstate travellers and triple dose vaccinated if eligible, or double dose if not eligible for a third dose. Do children travelling from overseas into WA need to show proof of vaccination to enter? So proof of vaccination requirements apply to all travellers to WA who are eligible to be vaccinated. Now, what happens if I test positive to COVID-19 while I am visiting WA? So you just refer to the testing and isolation guides for more information about what to do if you test positive to COVID-19 while in WA. Well, we know that you do need to register your positive result. Now, can I get my travel agent to register for a G2G Pass on my behalf? The answer is no, you must complete the G2G Pass. Will G2G Pass accept my international mobile number? The answer is yes. Now, this is all about testing. All these questions have to do with testing. Now, will I be provided with a RAT when I enter WA? So all arrivals into WA by air from interstates and overseas will be provided with a free RAT upon arrival. So arrivals must undertake a RAT within 12 hours of arrival if entering by air, or 24 hours if not entering by air. And again, you must register any positive test result online with the Department of Health. Now, please note, RATs will not be available for travellers who enter WA from interstate via land. So if you are entering via land, ensure that you do have your own RAT. Where can I get additional RATs from? Now, RATs can be purchased from supermarkets, chemists, and other retailers. Is it free to get a PCR test in WA if I am an international traveller? It is free to get a PCR test in WA if you have COVID-19 symptoms, are a confirmed COVID-19 case, or are a close contact. And if you are obtaining a PCR test for the purpose of international visa requirements, travel requirements to leave WA, or work clearances, you will not be permitted to present to a COVID-19 testing clinic and will require a GP referral or pathology form for testing at a private pathology clinic, and there may be costs associated with this. Where can I get tested? So a list of COVID testing clinics are available on the WA Health's website. Again, there's a link there. And if you're leaving WA, what happens if I test positive to COVID-19 while I am out of the country? So the Smarts Traveller website has further information about what to do if you test positive to COVID-19 while outside of Australia. And this may also have implications on your return to Australia. Now let's look at paying for hotel quarantine. So these are the FAQs for paying for hotel quarantine. Now, changes to hotel quarantine have come into effect for double-dose vaccinated travellers who test negative to COVID-19. Okay, so paying for hotel quarantine in WA. So all international and some domestic travellers to WA issued a centre quarantine direction under the Emergency Management Act 2005 will need to quarantine in a hotel for at least 7 days following arrival, and travellers will be permitted to leave hotel quarantine on day 8 and complete a further 7 days in suitable premises, provided it is deemed appropriate by WA Health. Now, when in quarantine, you must stay in your designated room, even if you are feeling well, and when you are in quarantine, you are not permitted to have any visitors, even if they are another traveller also in quarantine. And when completing the final 7 days of quarantine in a premises deemed suitable, you are not permitted to have any visitors, though you may share the premises with other people who reside in that property. So other people who reside at the premises, if any, will also be subject to quarantine, PCR testing and G2G monitoring. And travellers are reminded that the COVID-19 pandemic remains a rapidly evolving situation, and the measures are to ensure the safety of WA and to limit the spread of COVID-19. Why do I need to pay? So the WA government announced on the 10th of July 2020 that anyone arriving into WA and directed to enter a state quarantine facility, hotel quarantine, on or after the 17th of July 2020 would be required to pay for their quarantine period. So this is consistent with agreement at a National Cabinet to move to a user pays model and endorsed at State Disaster Council, and legislation is in effect to enable this to occur. Now, who needs to pay? So those entering a state quarantine facility, hotel quarantine, include international arrivals, interstate arrivals from extreme risk jurisdictions, interstate arrivals who don't have an appropriate place to self-quarantine, anybody considered a high risk and must complete hotel quarantine as determined by WA Police, maritime off-signers, disembarking vessels, international flight crew, and anybody considered a high risk and must complete hotel quarantine as determined by WA Police. How much will it cost? The WA government has worked with the hotel industry to ensure a range of suitable accommodation is available in the Perth metropolitan area for quarantine purposes, so the WA government will continue to fund the costs of security for hotels, transport and logistics, and these have not been included in the calculation of costs payable by individuals, couples or families. So the fee will contribute towards the cost of the room, meals and cleaning, and a person may stay in hotel quarantine between 7 and 14 days, example 10 days. So as a guide, costs for 7 and 14 days are provided below. Okay, so as you can see here, you've got the 7 days in hotel quarantine, and then you have 14 days in hotel quarantine. So it looks like this is 180 times 7 equals 1260, and then 180 times 7 plus 60 times 7 equals 1680 there. Okay, and then it's the same for 14 days in hotel quarantine. So again, 180 per day, and then for an extra person it's $60 per day, and that totals 2,520 for one person. If you add the additional person, it's 3,360 for 14 days. Okay, so the maximum number of guests per room is 2 adults and 2 children under the ages of, under 18 years of age, and families of 2 adults and 2 children may choose to stay in one room for the duration of their stay, or they may choose to be accommodated in 2 rooms and pay the additional cost for the extra room, and interconnecting rooms will be allocated if available. Now, children under 6 will not be charged the additional cost component of the fee, so that's $60 fee there. Alcohol will continue to be available at the passenger's own cost and will be settled by an account between the passenger and the hotel operator. And more information is available at My Health WA. When is the quarantine fee payable? So at the end of your quarantine period, an invoice for the fee will be provided to you, and the payment is required within 30 days of the invoice date. Are there payment plans available? Yes, if you cannot pay the full quarantine fee by the invoice due date, you can enter a payment plan to repay the amount over a 6-month period. And details of how to apply will be provided to you upon check-in. Can I apply to have the quarantine fee waived? And if so, who is eligible and how can this be done? So you may be eligible for a full or partial fee waiver under the grounds of financial hardship. So you must be an Australian citizen or a permanent resident to apply for this waiver, and you can apply for this once you have checked into your hotel. Your application will be assessed against criteria to ensure there is genuine hardship, and you will be expected to provide evidence to support your application. Eligibility is assessed against criteria including but not limited to: an individual is unable to meet current financial obligations, example, home loan, immediate living expenses, unemployment or on job seeker or another relevant Centrelink service on an Australian studying overseas, loss of a business entity, home or possessions due to COVID-19 or a natural disaster. So when applying under this category, you will be asked to provide citizenship, residency documentation, bank letter or stat dec, Centrelink statement, Other relevant documents including bills, rate notices, debts agreements, family court documents regarding financial obligations, funeral expenses, notice of impending legal actions, international students' fees, and eviction notices. Now, to apply for a waiver, once you have checked into your hotel, please complete the Department of Communities Hotel Quarantine-Free Waiver application. If I am given a centre quarantine direction, can I quarantine at a cheap hotel, at home, or with family or friends? The answer is no. Mandatory quarantine must be in a state quarantine facility as outlined in the direction. You cannot arrange to quarantine at home or other accommodation unless you have completed a minimum of 7 days in hotel quarantine and meet a set of eligibility criteria. So the measures are to ensure the safety of Western Australians and to limit the spread of COVID-19. I have a flight stopover in WA. Will I be charged the quarantine fee? So if you are entering WA by air to transfer to another flight, you may be required to go into a state quarantine facility. So if you are required to be accommodated for more than 24 hours, an invoice will be calculated based on the time spent. So you will not be charged a fee if you are in transit for less than 24 hours. Will my travel insurance cover the quarantine fee? Please contact your travel insurance company directly for more information. I am travelling to WA to undertake essential work. Can my employer be invoiced for my quarantine fee? So the quarantine fee will be issued to the individual who was in quarantine, and it cannot be reissued in your employer's name. It is the responsibility of the individual and employer to determine who will pay the invoice. I am from a non-English speaking background and did not understand that I was agreeing to pay the quarantine fee. Do I have to pay? Now, all people arriving into WA from international travel must quarantine in WA government arranged accommodation for 14 days regardless of their cultural background. So that is all you need to know as an international traveller or arrival coming into WA. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's Helen Hortai, founder of Form Help. Have a great day.